Hey everyone, welcome back to a new video. I hope you had a great day. Let's take a look at some new r/malicious compliance stories, shall we? The first story is called Sound of Music. My wife and I live in a small apartment complex in a city. Ours is situated somewhere in the middle of the other four, with walls connecting to all of them. Our neighbors like their music, despite the fact that most of the connecting walls are somewhat thin. They don't mind, because their walls mostly connect to ours and not to each other. We don't mind that much, as long as they turn their music off at around 10 PM. But lately it surpasses 10 PM from different directions. We have a WhatsApp chat group and an okay neighborly relationship, so I make a comment about the noise in our chat group. No reaction. Next day, noise from music from multiple directions after 10 PM. Again, comment in the chat group, but no response. This goes on for a while, so I decided that it's time to escalate, and I sent a message stating next time I will contact the landlord and probably the police because I need my beauty sleep. Then one of my neighbors reacts with a message like, "Yo, don't be like that, we ought to have a good time and music is part of it, quit your nagging." So I started my malicious compliance. Since our apartment is the only one with connecting walls to theirs, I decided it's time to get our own Dolby 7.1 surround sound setup. I should not be that nagging neighbor. After all, we ought to have ourselves a good time. They soon after realized that walls are, indeed, thin, and they've been blessed with a quiet neighbor like us. It started raining some very satisfying and desperate messages in the chat group. Afterward, agreements were made, and to our surprise, we received apologies from two of our neighbors. Now we sleep well, and before 10 PM, I enjoy my Queen and AC/DC albums on my brand new surround. The next story is called You Want to Book? My wonderful family of four are on a trip to visit family and friends. 4 years ago, on a trip with the same itinerary as this one, I, the husband, booked our hotel as I usually do. I am what you would describe as thrifty, and I don't like spending a ton on hotels when we are basically just sleeping there. The hotel I booked for this leg of the journey was probably not the most high class, and sure, it was not in the safest area of town. This was definitely a hotel where some acts of questionable legality and morality occur. In my defense, it was a very last-minute booking, as we were supposed to be staying with family and there were very few options available under $150 a night. The stay there ended up being fine, but it has been a long-running joke between us for the past 4 years. We are now visiting for the first time in 4 years. I went to book the hotel and my wife said, "No way, it's my hometown and I'm doing it this time." So she pulls up Priceline and starts looking at places, specifically looking for a place with a pool for the littles. She looks at one, reads the reviews and details and says it looks good, especially for the lower price. She even calls to make sure the pool is open. I look at the photos and look back at her, thinking she was making a joke. She was not. I just smiled and said, "Whatever you think, babe. You know what's coming." As we approach the hotel, I see a look of confusion slowly wash over her face. She says, "Wait, is this?" and twits off. I reply with a resounding, "Yep, it sure is." She booked us in the exact same hotel that she has been grieving me about for 4 years. I laughed and laughed and laughed. She cannot believe she did it and also thinks it is hilarious. I am vindicated. The last story is called CIO Tries to Hide Her Mistakes. I had worked about 2 years at this point for a MSP, at the time called a systems integrator, and they generously paid for the engineers and techs to obtain industry certifications. I started out as an on-call contractor setting up desktops, and they hired me on full-time after about 3 months. By the time this occurred, I had worked my way up to junior level engineer, obtained my MCSE, CNA, and was working towards my CNE and Cisco certifications. At the time, Novell and Microsoft were neck and neck in server operating system dominance, hence getting both certifications. With book study and field experience, I wasn't an expert, but I had my own. One day, I get called into the boss's office to meet with him, the owner, and the salesperson. The owner told me with a gleam in his eye that the company just landed a major high-profile client, our city's pro basketball team. They've agreed to give us a small task to prove ourselves. I was to install and configure backup software on their Windows server and test to ensure it works. The team offered the carrot of not only signing a long-term support contract, but also recommendation to their business partners and other teams if I was successful. This was definitely within my wheelhouse. I figured 1 hour tops, in and out. I showed up to the arena, checked in with security, and I'm escorted to the business office area. A lady we'll call Karen comes out and introduces herself as the CIO. Karen spent the first 45 minutes of my time there to take me on a grand tour of the business office. I saw the owner's offices, the GM's office, her office, pictured of framed and autographed jerseys, the nearly empty trophy case and the big glass window that overlooks the court. She even said I'm welcome to eat lunch in the staff dining area. She then said she's taking me to the server room. In another circumstance, I would have considered the tour a treat, but 3 things. First, I had another client to see that day, and this was messing up my schedule. Not a big deal, I can have the office call the client to move the visit back a little. Second, the team hadn't exactly been playing championship caliber basketball except for the last 2 years prior. Before that, they made the playoffs twice in 15 years and got their heads kicked in both times. Third, my favorite basketball team is this team's rival, so it's cool, but I'm not over the moon. Then she asked me if I was ready to see the server. We turned a couple of corners and she unlocked the door to a really small office. Boxes stacked in one corner, spare furniture in another. At the back wall sat an old-school CRT monitor hooked to an old-school KVM switch box on our desk connected to 2 tower computers sitting side by side on the carpeted floor. Right next to the monitor sat a stack of network switches with a spaghetti of cables that ran haphazardly up the wall and into a removed panel of the fake ceiling. On top of the tower sat a box with the backup software. Karen waved her hand at the setup, pointed to a sheet with some handwriting on it, said I should have everything I need and she'll be in her office if I had any questions. She left me to it, and after I called the home office to reschedule my other client, I started assessing the situation. I quickly saw the first problem. The network server was already set up to run backups, but going by the status report date on the screen, backups hadn't been running for months. The software was only an add-on module to back up email folders. Using the credentials on the sheet, I logged into the Windows server running Exchange to handle all the email. I tried to look at different settings, and I quickly realized I only had limited permissions. I logged to the Novell server, and I didn't have enough permissions, so I walked back to the CIO's office. So far, Karen's been pretty chill, but suddenly Karen flipped the Karen switch on. Maybe I didn't seem impressed enough with the tour. 2 problems. First, I need admin permissions to do the work you need me to be done. Second, why do you need admin permissions? To install and configure the backup software, the software also. Why can't you just use the accounts I gave you? Because they don't have enough permissions. Also the backup software. My other tag, let's call him Paul, uses those accounts fine to run the backups. Why do you need extra permissions? She picks up the desk phone and dials. Hey Paul, could you come to my office now, please? Thanks. Probably because he has backup operator permissions. Higher permissions are needed to install the software. Speaking of which, Karen, after Paul knocks on the door and enters, have you had any problems with the daily backups? No, why? This guy here says he needs extra permissions to install the backup software. Do you agree? Paul looks side to side. I'm not sure, as I just handled the desktop. If Paul can manage backups with those accounts, I don't see why you can't install the software. How did you install the software originally? All of this was set up before I started here, and I was brought in to clean all of this up. Is there anyone else who manages the servers? No, it's just me and him. I see. Would you come with me please? I need to show you something. Why? It's easier to show you than explain. Karen rolls her eyes, gets up from her desk and motions for Paul to come with us. We all go back to the server room. Okay, first let me ask. My understanding is you want the backup software installed on the Windows server, right? Of course, so it can perform brick-level backups of the email. You guys said you were sending one of your best. How do you not know about backups? For those who don't know, brick-level backups at the time meant the software allowed the backup and restore of individual emails, not the entire email database. So if someone deleted one email and wanted just that one restored, that could happen instead of restoring and overwriting the entire database and losing new emails processed since the last backup. It also saved a lot of time. That's why I'm asking, you bought an add-on module for the Novell server. I show her where it says this on the box. I can't install this on Windows. Karen snatches the box from my hand. I called the software company myself and ordered it from them directly after I told them to set up here. Are you saying they lied to me and sold me the wrong product or made a mistake? No, I'm not saying that, as I wasn't part of the conversation. I'm only saying this is for Novell and I can't install this on Windows. So they sold me the wrong software? Can we go to their website or call them? Karen rolls her eyes. Fine, let's go back to my office. Back at her office, she sat down, went to the website while I stood behind her, then spun around to me with a smirk on her face after a few mouse clicks. See, this is what I bought. It says right here it will back up Microsoft Exchange servers. Well, this doesn't say brick level backups, and it says for Novell servers. Can you click where it says Microsoft? Karen sighs and clicks. This is pointless. I bought what I bought because it's half the cost. When I called, they said this would also back up my Exchange server. Why would it back up a Windows server but not install on a Windows server? That makes no sense. I'm pointing to the screen. It says right there the Windows version performs brick level backups. The network version will back up the emails but the entire database. And it will restore the entire database as one file, but it can't do brick level backups or restores. A server can back up anything as long as it can see it on a network and it has permissions to it. Here's the bottom line. They told me this would work. I'm paying you to make this work, so make it work. Or tell me you can't make it work and I'll find someone who can. Enter the malicious compliance. It will work, but not like how you think. And if you want to, air quotes, make it work, it will only install on Novell. Can I show you? Karen sighs and hands me the software box. I still need an admin login. After several more minutes of debate over the admin login, she reluctantly logged me into the Windows server. I put the CD into the Windows server and nothing happened. I brought up the CD in Explorer to show her folders and files, but no executable and no way really to install. She unlocked the Novell console, I inserted the CD, mounted it, and the install auto ran. I didn't look back, but I could feel her eyes burning holes into the back of my head. In about 30 minutes I installed the software and configured it to back up the Exchange server boxes as well as the rest of the data on both servers. Then I performed a successful test backup, all while she hovered over me with her arms crossed. I noticed that backups hadn't been running, and after checking the logs to find the problem, I configured the schedule service to log in with the backup operator account credentials. Then it tested again successfully. By the way, your backups haven't been running for about 3 months. I fixed that for you. The schedule service didn't have a login account configured, so I plugged in the backup operator username and password. What do you mean? You saw the status screen when we walked in, and it said a successful backup, and you said you needed admin rights. Yes, that was the last successful backup, which was months ago. I switched to the log file on the screen. Here's the date and time of the last successful backup. Configuring a backup job and installing software are 2 different tasks that need 2 different sets of permissions. Karen stomped to the door, opened it and yelled for Paul. When he arrived, she lit into him so loudly someone from the cubicles came into the room to see what the problem was. I still feel bad about that, because it wasn't Paul's fault. After 3 hours I left and immediately called my boss from the car, explaining exactly what happened. Sure enough, Karen had already called. My boss reassigned my other client and asked me to come back. When I got back to the office, the owner, my boss and I went to the conference room and we set up a conference call with Karen and the backup software support team. They looked up Karen's account and politely explained that according to the notes, they told Karen to buy the Windows version for brick level backups of Exchange email accounts. But Karen balked at the price, so they offered her the Novell version with the caveat that it would perform entire Exchange database backups and user folders only. I wasn't completely right, but right enough. Karen now insisted that they only sold her what they sold her because she threatened to buy their competitor's software. After she demanded a supervisor, the supervisor got on the call and said she needed to buy the correct software that would make an exception to their no refunds on open software policy and give her a partial credit. Otherwise, she could go ahead and buy the competitor's software, and she would get no refund at all. Karen huffed and puffed and tried playing the "do you know who I work for" card, but they wouldn't budge. She had no other choice. After the software company hung up, Karen asked the owner when he could send me out to finish the job. He muted the phone and asked me if I wanted to go back out there, and I said no. He asked me if I would go if he sent a senior there with me, and I agreed. He then unmuted and told Karen that to make sure there are no issues, he was sending me with a senior engineer, and he made a deal with her. If the senior corrected my work, there would be no charge for service. However, if I was correct, then she would pay for my time today plus the time for both me and the senior on the second visit. Also, she would need to make sure that we had full administrative access and not hover while we worked. Agreed to all conditions or we don't come back. Karen agreed and added that she would definitely not work with us again, then hung up abruptly. We went back after Karen got the correct software. I installed it without a hitch, even though she had enabled remote desktop on the server to watch me. I also wrote up a job aid for Paul with screenshots to manage backup jobs. The senior saw I knew what I was doing, so to pass the time he made a list of recommendations for her. Server racks, anti-static mats, UPS, things like that. He emailed them to Karen and CC'd me, my boss and the owner. The invoice we sent her charged her for 3 hours for my first visit, plus the hour at my rate and another hour for the senior at the higher rate. A few months later, my boss told me they got a call back from the team's new CIO. He said after the team restructured the business unit, he took Karen's place and hired additional staff. Paul discovered the recommendation list among a bunch of emails Karen had deleted with a brick-level restore of her emails that I set up. The new CIO wanted to know how soon the company could send someone to complete the recommendation list and consult his staff on additional recommendations. Since the new CIO was hiring his own staff, he wouldn't need us for a long-term support contract, but he would definitely call us when he needed any work done they couldn't handle. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the like button. It really helps in the algorithm. Have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.